Welcome to episode 139 of the G2 on 5G. It's the latest inside scoop on everything 5G. We cover 6 topics in about 20 minutes, and it's brought to you by More Insights and Strategy. I'm Will Townsend, and joining me again this week is fellow analyst Anshel Sag. Let's get started with my first topic. And I caught the news about the UK Department of Science, Innovation, and Technology announcing a competition for Open RAN. And the question I have is, can it really drive innovation? So there's 80 million pounds that are dedicated to this project that come out of a larger fund called the UK Open Networks Research and Development Fund, which is 250 pounds. And so basically, this is aimed at removing foreign infrastructure from mobile networks in the United Kingdom. The competition just began. It'll close on May 23rd. And in terms of who's eligible, the article that I read on telecoms.com was the investment will be delivered primarily in the form of completed grants to consortia of capable businesses, academic institutions, and public sector organizations. So this is focused at, squarely at the public sector. But hey, I think anything is a good thing. Open RAN has traditionally been very cost optimized, not performance optimized. Although there have been companies like Qualcomm that have been addressing that with accelerators and that sort of thing. You and I have talked about that on prior podcasts. But what's your take on this?
I think it's a necessary effort. I think the good part is that this is a government and understanding that that there's very likely not going to be a market solution for this problem if they really are pushing for eliminating vendors that they are not considered national security safe.
Right.
So I think that plus just bolstering the overall security of networks, I think is ultimately important. If anything, I would actually treat this as more of like a network security program. And as a component of that program would be to fund, the activities of Open RAN companies or startups to deliver solutions that address the problems that the UK government, other Five Eyes governments have, right? Because mostly it's Five Eyes governments that are following this regime of changing over networks. Like if you look at Germany, they have tons of Huawei equipment compared to other countries. So I think it's a very interesting approach. I think you said how many millions of pounds was that?
80 million pounds for this
So
particular.
about 150 million or so, maybe a little less, 120 million.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that's kind of just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
Um, I think most of these government programs generally don't really have enough money to accomplish what they hope to achieve. But I think if they just spark some innovation and interest in the sector, I think that's already a component of what they're supposed to be doing. But yeah, I think it's a good thing, and hopefully it yields some more competition in the open RAN space.
Yeah, no, your comment on security, I think, is spot on. I've been critical of Open RAN. I mean, when you look at the different consortiums out there that are focused on it, like the ORAN Alliance, there are not as many working groups focused on security. When you disaggregate infrastructure, that creates risk, expands the threat surface. And so I agree with you. I think, the focus should be and probably will be on security. But let's move to your first topic. And this kind of caught you and I by surprise, but Intel made an announcement that they're exiting the 5G PC business, the connected PC. You want to talk about that? And I shared some insights on Twitter as well, but I'll let you take it.
Yeah, so I actually, they weren't really trying to make news about this, but that's usually when news gets generated.
Yeah.
Um, the interesting part is that I reached out to both Intel and MediaTek about the situation because, you know, this is a joint partnership between Intel and MediaTek in the sense that MediaTek is the modem supplier, while Intel is the platform and the integration. So
Yeah.
MediaTek delivers the chip and some of the capabilities in that modem, and then Intel pretty much takes it the rest of the way, all the way to the OEM and helps it get integrated. And there were quite a few designs that, they were really gaining some momentum with this project. But it was kind of a former shell of itself in the sense that originally its purpose was to integrate Intel modems into Intel platforms. But
Right.
I believe since 2019, the Intel modem business has ceased to exist
Right.
and was sold off to Apple for about $1 billion, which I think Apple got a deal on. Now,
Right.
that said, Apple has been working on those modems, building their own modems, using some of this IP and the engineering talent that they had. And it's been 4 years and they still haven't delivered a product. So it's questionable whether or not that program really was viable to begin with. But
Yeah.
Intel said that this is part of them pursuing their more manufacturing focused strategy. And I guess part of that means cutting programs.
Right.
And this program was both LTE and 5G modems, but it does not impact their Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, or Ethernet businesses,
Mm-hmm.
nor their networking, Edge, or Thunderbolt. It's just the modems. And as I said, the modems are from MediaTek.
Yeah.
But I did ask MediaTek for their opinion or their statement on this. And they said that they have a strong history of delivering global wireless solutions and continue to make investments in their wireless modem platform beyond the smartphone into PCs and other devices. They will continue to work with Intel on the wireless modem technology transfer to support their existing customer base and future partners. So it sounds
Mm-hmm.
like MediaTek is open to taking whatever customers Intel had
Yeah.
and helping them transition to MediaTek since they were already using MediaTek modems.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think this will probably drive up the cost of 5G modems and PCs. And I think it will also push more OEMs towards Qualcomm if they're looking to do an integrated 5G solution,
Mm-hmm.
because the only really fully integrated solutions are going to be MediaTek, Qualcomm, and Apple once Apple does ship. But MediaTek doesn't ship in PCs on the processor side. They only ship in PCs on the modem side. So
Right.
um, they do have some Chromebooks, but we haven't really seen a Windows PC from them yet. And it'll be interesting to see if that happens. But right now, Qualcomm is kind of the only game in town when it comes to 5G PCs.
Yeah, I agree. This isn't good from sort of a bill of material perspective. I think there's a bigger issue around just the connected PC platform in general and easing provisioning. And now we have eSIM. Apple, with its latest iPhone announcement, sort of broke open the gates with respect to eSIM and driving adoption there. And I think eSIM will provide a cleaner, faster path to provisioning. And I think the mobile network operators are going to need to partner a little more strategically with the PC OEMs like the Dells and HPs of the world and Lenovo's of the world to make that whole, business, viable, both, from a hardware standpoint, because it burdens the hardware, but also just from an activation standpoint. But with that, let me move to my second topic, and I want to talk about Mavenir. And there was an article that was published on Fierce Wireless, sort of talking about their strategy in pursuing 5G Open RAN hardware. Okay, and it got me thinking: is Mavenir stretching itself, too thin? So on prior podcasts, we've talked about the company. They've had a few reductions in force. They've had to sort of refocus their efforts. I think they sized the market incorrectly. They hired to that, and they had to fire to that. And so in this particular article, they talked about OpenBeam, which is the brand for their radio, and their CTO, and I'm not going to, Bejoy is his first name. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce his last name, but he basically states that Mavenir never intended to be in the hardware business, but given the drive for domestic suppliers, they felt that they had to participate and provide a product. But that doesn't make a lot of sense to me because you've got very well-established players that are doing radios like Airspan Networks and JMA Wireless. Now, Airspan has had some stumbles. They had a SPAC or something that didn't quite wind out correctly. I did like their ticker symbol; it was MIMO, but for me that doesn't really add up. I feel like on your kind of your pick your RAN flavor, um, I think there are enough options out there, and it's just I think Mavenir is focused on something. I mean, they've traditionally been very strong in software and orchestration and that sort of thing. So I don't fully buy, what their CTO was quoted as saying in that Fierce Wireless article. But I don't know if you caught this article or if you have any comments before we move on to your second topic.
I kind of caught it.
Yeah,
I don't know how it came up, but you and I might have even talked about it. But the one thing I'll say is when software companies suddenly become hardware companies, it usually doesn't turn out well.
right.
Or it takes many, many iterations for it to succeed. And I'm not sure that Mavenir necessarily has that luxury.
I don't believe so either. So time will tell. But let's move to your second topic. And GTC 23 was this week, and you and I were participating in lots of those virtual sessions, and you want to provide some insights on a couple of those announcements.
Yeah, so there were quite a few 5G sessions, which I thought was awesome.
Yeah.
I think you and I both participated in some of those. The good thing is this is their last virtual GTC. Next year will be in person. I don't know where it'll be, but the inkling is that it won't be in San Jose anymore. It's too big. But this GTC 23, I've been participating all week. I think today was the last day. And there were a lot of XR sessions, there were a lot of 5G, and there were a lot of XR and 5G sessions, including a CloudXR 4.0 session, which kind of goes over the newest features in CloudXR, which is NVIDIA's like cloud XR streaming platform that enables their GPUs in the cloud to successfully, eliminate the boundaries of having GPU compute on the device and allows for streaming from the cloud directly into a headset, whether it's through a Wi-Fi network, through it's a wired network, or through 5G. So this iteration of CloudXR is very much focused on enabling 5G. I see CloudXR even being used, in a ton of different ways where compute is just remote. And that's really what this is about. And with this new generation of CloudXR, they're implementing end-to-end L4S, which stands for low latency, low loss, scalable. And that basically allows for the ability to reduce jitter on a 5G network when sending packets of XR content. And because jitter is such a big problem in 5G networks, and jitter is also a problem in XR, they are working with infrastructure vendors and operators to implement L4S, which is actually a part of the 5G standard, to make sure that there aren't any issues with jitter, and they're tagging these packets, and the network is able to detect these tags and ensure that they're queued up correctly, and making sure that all of the content is properly scheduled. And as a result of that, when the operator implements L4S, it works seamlessly for the application developer, and they don't have to really worry about what's going on the network side because it's all designed to work together. And the cool thing is that it sounds like a couple operators are already on board. They didn't say which operators they were, but they said they were working with Ericsson, and Ericsson helped them build this solution. So clearly, if Ericsson's involved, there's going to be some Ericsson customers that are probably going to implement this. But it's very promising for XR and 5G. And it's, the kind of stuff that I love to see out of conferences like this, because it's like really meaty, valuable information that helps us understand where the industry's at and where developers can, take advantage of these technologies and not just talk about what the potential is, endlessly. The good thing is they said that it'll actually be shipping in Q2, which is next month. And that'll be like a preview, and then mid Q2, so like maybe May timeframe, it'll be public. So it's a very quick, release. It's not like coming out at the end of the year. And hopefully we'll see some really big improvements in how XR applications are deployed with remote rendering at the edge.
That's awesome. And I'll just comment, I participated in several sessions as well. And one big takeaway for me was the announcement that NVIDIA made with AT&T, how they're helping with NVIDIA's AI platform, help AT&T do intelligent truck rolls and routing, improve the speed of network deployment and performance, and really lean in to what NVIDIA has built very impressively with its AI platform to bring intelligence to, arguably one of the largest mobile network operators on the planet. So great stuff. Let's move to my third and final topic. And I want to talk about a Forbes article that I posted this week. It was on Wednesday. Go ahead at Willtown Tech if you want to read about it. But I wrote about NTT's partnership with the city of Las Vegas, and I kind of made an allusion to the movie Get Smart. This is all about private networking and smart city deployment. In a very high level, I spent last year a couple different sessions with Michael Sherwood. He's the Chief Technology and Innovation Officer for the city of Las Vegas. Really great guy, very humble, very approachable. And we were really talking about some of the things that Michael was wanting to facilitate through these smart city deployments to serve not only residents of Las Vegas, but also visitors. And the use cases that are leveraging 5G focus on improving remote learning, connectivity, and the associated applications, bolstering security through intelligent monitoring and lighting systems in parks and venues and traffic congested areas, and then finally delivering robust connectivity for residents, including broadband access to those that are underserved in the poorer parts of the city. And I saw that firsthand. So I had never been down to the city center. It's well past the strip of all, with all the casinos, and beyond the city center is sort of the lower socioeconomic area. And Michael tells me that many don't have basic internet access, and so I assume FWA will be a part of that as well. And another interesting investigation that he shared with me, they're leveraging NTT and Solona with CBRS spectrum to do a lot of these private network deployments. But he is also experimenting with millimeter wave in certain parts of the city for computer vision applications and that sort of thing. Getting back to that security, sort of stuff, to improve, just the overall security for visitors that go there, right? Because lots of people like to go to Las Vegas. Lots of people like to overconsume, booze and food and whatever, and and sometimes you find yourself, in a precarious predicament. So, and that's not unlike any city in the U.S. But if you want to learn more, go hit my Twitter feed, and I spent a lot of time, kind of talking through that, and it's a really innovative partnership. And this kicked off actually at Mobile World Congress Las Vegas in September. And then when I was back in Las Vegas for another event, I met with Michael in person downtown. But anything you want to add to that before we move to your third and final?
No, just that, I was going to say that Las Vegas is definitely one of the cities that's trying to experiment as much as possible with new technology to elevate the city and its residents' access to those technologies. Like Halo was one of the first companies to launch like a semi-autonomous driving service there.
Right.
There were some other companies like Aptiv that launched self-driving vehicles there. T-Mobile was one of the first. Vegas was one of the first cities that they launched their 2.5 in.
That's right.
If you even go way, 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 way back, WiMAX was, Vegas was one of the first cities to launch WiMAX.
Clearwire, yeah, that's a blast.
So I think Vegas is definitely trying to be an innovative city. When you look at like what they did with at CES, I drove around and they're doing a lot of like smart city, vehicle to vehicle, vehicle to infrastructure kind of innovative POCs, trying to figure out how to make people safer and vehicles safer. So it's really interesting to see Vegas is continuing to push down this path and figure out how they can make their city better for all of their citizens and even visitors.
Yeah, and just a final note. So the city and NTT claim that this deployment represents the largest municipal deployment in the United States, although I did meet with an executive with NTT at Mobile World Congress, and he said, stay tuned. They're partnered with Cisco, and I think with Cisco, NTT can do some really big things with private 5G. So with that, let's go to your third and final topic, and you want to talk about Huawei, and they've announced some new phones, right?
Yes. So in a China-only event, Huawei announced, I want to say 4 phones. They announced the P60 series, which include the P60, P60 Pro, and P60 Pro Art, as well as the Mate X3. And what's really interesting about these devices is that they are pretty competitive on camera specs, display technology, um, you know, fast charging. They support up to, 66 and 88 watts. So maybe they're not as fast as some other OEMs. They've got big batteries. They're fairly sleekly designed. However, they are limited to using 4G LTE, and they're only using Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 chips. So they're actually one generation behind where all of their Chinese OEM competitors are, and they don't only have LTE. So um, it's really interesting because these are going to be their flagship devices. Obviously, the P60 Pro and the Pro Art and the Mate X3. But the question I'm really wondering is, can it really be a flagship phone if it doesn't have 5G,
Yeah.
especially today with all of the capabilities that 5G is starting to enable, and how long people are holding onto their phones for? Can you really still be on 4G and be paying as much as you would for a flagship device?
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be a very uphill challenge for them, but I think it's been an uphill challenge for them ever since they got banned.
Right.
And I think it's going to be really challenging for them to sell like a Mate X3 for almost $2,000 with only LTE.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, Huawei has done some beautiful design. I mean, they have, a design studio in Paris, and they do things with, paint, and finishes and, just beautiful design. And, they integrate high-end optics and that sort of thing. But I agree with you. I mean, a flagship phone has to have a 5G modem in it, straight up. So,
And they're banned from having them. So
yeah,
I don't really know what to think of their business or how it will survive.
yeah,
Um, but you know, it's a tough call. I don't really know who's going to be buying those.
yeah. Interesting. Well, hey, my friend, it's been another great podcast this week. Why don't you take us home?
Absolutely. We hope our viewers and listeners found this week's topics interesting. If anyone out there would like to provide insights on a specific 5G topic for a future podcast, please reach out to us on social media. Will is at Will Town Tech, and I'm at Anshel. We hope you have a great week, and please don't forget to rate us and subscribe and tune in again next week.